So in this video, we're going to create a quick little clone stamping setup to remove some of the kind of egregious details that we don't want from our tiling texture. If we go back over to Unreal very quickly, we can see this is the most noticeable single detail. So let's have a look at how we can remove it. So we already have our points here, and we have a group selection of the region that we want to create the tiling texture from. So if we put down a blast node, we can take the output of this group and we can just leave only this. And this allows us to now very easily go in, and with another group node, we can put down another group node, and we can set the group mode selection to points. And then we can go in and we can make a quick little selection of this region. By default, the selection is going to be a marquee selection, but if I go up to the top of the viewport here, I can change this to a lasso select, and I can make a much tighter selection around the object that I want to remove. Now that we have this region that we want to remove, I need to transfer this information to a kind of buffer that we can pass to cops. Fortunately, we already have a correctly oriented grid that's going to have the UVs that we need in order to perform the clone stamp. So what we can do is we can take this grid that's already been projected to the high poly mesh. We can subdivide it a couple more times to make sure that we have enough information for the mask. And then we can say distance from geometry. So we can get the distance from this grid to this group that has been selected. And to do that, we need to set the reference group type to points. And then we're going to say that the group is going to be group 2. And then the output attribute we want is actually going to be this mask attribute. And we can just say CD for color. And now we see we have control over the radius from this selection of points, which we can use to do clone stamp from. Finally, before we dive into cops, we'll put down another null, and we'll call this one stamps. All right. So with this information in this buffer, we can jump back into Copernicus, and we can put down another SOP input, use external SOP. I'm going to go and find the stamp SOP. As we did with the bake plane, the low poly bake plane, we're going to rasterize this setup so that we bring it into the UV space. And then we're also going to go ahead and rasterize the geometry. We care, in this case, only about the color, so we can go ahead and add CD. And this now brings us this mask, which we can use to remove this element from the texture. And you can see that it lines up with this element. So much like we did with the Make It Tile functionality, what we're going to do is we're going to put down a sample, image sample or texture sample. We can plug the output of the texture color into the texture. We can get a UV map and plug that into the UVs. And we should see that we get the same as we do before. Okay, no, we don't. So something may be slightly different about the UV sample. So we're just actually going to go for the image sample because I think that's the one I used before. And I haven't explored the texture sample. So there we go. We can now see that's identical. And just like with the Make It Tile functionality, I'm just going to shift this on the U so that we've kind of moved this point. In fact, I'm going to go the other way, so that we can see that in that region, there's now just sort of earth. And I'm also going to go ahead and put it to wrap and wrap, just in case I shift it around some more. So you might notice we've now introduced this on the other side. So we've basically just offset the problem. Well, that's fine because we're actually going to do a quick little blend, as we did before, between the original texture, the new offset texture, and then we have our little mask here. So hopefully we're going to see that working, and if we don't, it's because this is not mono. So I need to set this to mono, and then we should see that we get that working. And if we don't, it may be a bug. So I'm going to delete the blend. I'm going to put down another little blend. There we go, foreground, background, and mask. And now we can see that that is working. So there it is before, and there it is afterwards. And if we want to get finer control over how that looks, we can go up and pin this current view, and we can just go and tweak the radius. Now, of course, you might also want to add noise and distortion to break this up, and that's totally possible. So if we jump back into Copernicus, let's have a look at this rasterized geometry. We can put down a noise, and we can put down a distort. And if we plug this mask into the source of the distort, and then we plug the fractal noise into the scale or the mask, and increase the amplitude, or maybe I've mixed that up actually. 15. Yeah, we just needed to increase that strength. There we go. Amplitude 50, and we can decrease the scale or increase the scale. So this is one way that we can start to think about adding some breakup here, and we could of course then go and blur that as well afterwards to try and avoid it looking too strong. And then this may help us to hide the appearance of that transition region. So there we go. This same logic about applying noise and breakup to the mask blur, to the masked regions, applies equally to the make it tile functionality. So I recommend you can give that a go if you're interested. Now, just like we did before with the height blending and the color blending, we need to make sure that we're doing the same thing here again, where we process both those channels. So we're going to go ahead and copy this little setup. Once more, we'll move the clone stamping down, and this time we'll connect it up to the distance. So the distance goes into the texture here and to the texture here, and then we just pick up where we left off. So this block now can be thought of as the stamping, and I'm just going to tidy up my wiring a little bit here to try and make it a little bit tidier. Okay, so if we follow this through to the end once more and export all of our textures, jump back into Unreal, we can re-import. If we pay particular attention to this region before we do so, we'll see that we've now gotten rid of these very repetitive details. So that's clone stamping, transitioning between COPs and SOPs. And I hope you found this tutorial series interesting. We're nearing the end. There's a lot of other interesting areas that we could talk about. And I think the last and final video is going to be going over how do we create a quick little equalize function to get rid of sort of color and brightness variation. And maybe we'll look a little bit at delighting as well, even if this was already a relatively evenly lit subject. So I'll see you in the next one.